I have seen my fair share of psychological anime, some fantastic ones like Death Note, Code Geass, and Classroom of the Elite, and some not so good ones, for example, Platinum End and Promised Neverland Season 2. Today I will be discussing what, in my opinion, makes an amazing psychological anime, and to narrow and define what constitutes a psychological anime. A psychological anime is when an anime character gets what they want with their wits, smarts, and by mentally tricking their opponents with no physical force. Let's take Death Note as an example. That character Light kills his enemies by using a magical notebook that once the person's name is written down, results in the victim suffering a heart attack 60 seconds later. Yes, the characters die finally, but at the end of the day, Light mentally outsmarts his opponent by using trickery and no physical force. Code Geass is another good example, because even though there are machines which people operate to attack their enemies, it is religious strategies in the field that allow he and his allies to achieve victory. Kaguya-sama Love is War counts because the two characters try to make each other confess their love by using tricks and schemes they have come up with. Another factor when defining psychological anime is the mental aspect of the show, and that the character's psychological state must change due to twisted events in the story. ReZero is another anime example. Even though there are supernatural powers, and it is a fantasy isekai anime, Subaru's mental state is the main focus of the show, and he goes through extremely disturbing events that change him. Even though at the end his allies' friends win the battle with supernatural abilities, it's Subaru's mental state and him wanting to change that brings them to victory. Without Subaru in a good mindset, they would have lost and met their end. Those, in my opinion, are the characteristics of a good psychological anime. So, what creates a good psychological anime? Let's find out. Premise. The premise is a big aspect which must do multiple things. It must hook the audience. This goes for almost any type of show. Ideally, at the end of the first episode, there should be enough to inform the viewer, but not give away the whole story. If it needs more than a few episodes, then you have not fulfilled creating a good premise. It would be compared to reading the back jacket of a book that you might be interested in reading and not picking it up. The premise is important for the rest of the series and should not be forgotten. If your premise is forgotten, then you have lost what made the series impactful. It must challenge the characters constantly and be important to everyone in some way. It must be foreshadowed. This lets us question why are these characters in the given situation? What will this mean for them and their setting? And what will happen to propel the story forward? Classroom of the Elite is a good example. Its premise is about high school students in a prestigious school that get 100,000 points a month, which they can spend freely on whatever they choose, such as on entertainment, food, and everyday needs. This seems too perfect, so we are constantly looking for clues in order to figure out the underlying mystery of why it seems so perfect. There are clues like a table in one of the stores that has 3 items, and the students can only choose 3 per month. Why are there 3 items when they have a large amount of points to spend? Also, other students mention only the worst is yet to come. So, at the end of the first episode, they find out that they get 0 points for the new month due to their bad behavior in class. For those that spend all their points, they have nothing to live on for the new month. Points are also needed to get into higher classes. This is a well set up foreshadowing of what is to come, because it keeps us guessing what may happen with subtle clues. Character perspective. The perspective of a character matters a lot in this genre. Having an insight into what the characters are thinking is very engaging and allows us to delve into their minds. This way we know their intentions, motives, and exactly what they are thinking of themselves and others. These situations let us feel more connected to the characters. It allows us to care about what the character is going through, and we may relate to certain characters through their story, backstory, and emotional moments because we know a lot about them. Perspective also pertains to your view on the story and who you are rooting for, either the main character or the antagonist. Ryuji from Code Geass is a perfect example of this, because he's the protagonist, yet he does horrible deeds and causes the deaths of thousands of people just for his own goal. This makes you wonder if he really is the hero in this story, and if you can really justify his actions. These characters are great, because you wonder if their motivations are right or wrong. You don't know if you should root for them or not, and if you want them to fail or succeed. Mind games. Mind games are a big aspect of this genre, especially a series like Death Note and Classroom of the Elite. They rely on these games for their story to capture the audience. What I mean by this is, instead of cool fights throughout the episodes, the characters try to outsmart each other, not by fighting, but by tricking each other and playing mind games with their opponents to fulfill their objectives. These games create tension, suspense, and keep the audience on their toes, never knowing who is going to come out on top. Take almost any scene from Death Note, like the scene in the cafe where L tests Light's deductive reasoning skills by showing him photos, and then using these to make Light confess that he is Kira, the biggest criminal ever. It's so intense because the back-to-back thoughts of each character after every decision is very engaging and unique. They also made tennis interesting. Tennis! Any scene can be suspenseful if done right. I also enjoy figuring out the motives of the secondary characters and not being able to predict what they're thinking. It's so enjoyable and unlike any other genre I have ever watched. To sum up, psychological anime is fantastic if done right and can be thrilling. This is one of my favorite genres of anime to watch. So, in summary, you need to have a good premise, characters' perspectives, and mind games to have a great psychological anime. I can't wait for more anime, such as Classroom of the Elite Season 2, which is off to a great start, and seeing more of summertime rendering. This genre will always have a special place in my heart because they keep me intrigued every time. So that, in my opinion, is how you make a fantastic psychological anime. A battle of the wits is much more compelling than watching a physical battle. If you are tired of the same old cliches of the shows you watch, then try a psychological anime. You may find them as enjoyable as myself.